Hello, Reborn! We recently had a chance to host some playtests with y'all, and it was awesome seeing you dive into our game. So today, we're excited to show you what we've been working on since then. We'll be chatting about the changes we've made based on your feedback, how your thoughts shaped our decisions, and what's coming up next for Exoborne. So I'm here with a few of the devs, and they're going to talk about what we've been working on. And I'm here with Martin, Gustav, and Petter. Let's jump straight into the first question. What is Exoborne?
So Exoborne is a tactical open world extraction shooter set in United States after a big climate disaster. So you need to scavenge, craft, and fight to survive. And some of the big things in this game is, of course, the force of nature. The force of nature is this big emergent system that really changes how you approach each session with tornadoes, storms, and more. Then as a player, you also have Exorigs that really define your play style and let you play the game your way. And we have this dynamic movement that really is smooth when you go in and out of all these things you can do with Exorig.
Speaking about feedback, feedback is, of course, an integral part of our work here at Sharkmob. Getting the community's input and important voices, that is like vital for our process, and we're super grateful for the community when they share their different opinions, whether it's positive or they feel negative about something. And how do we work with that?
I can start by saying that I've worked on games before where we said we're working with community, it's the community first and so on. But I've never actually done so many tests and had so many conversations with members of the community and done so many changes based on all those discussions. And this is everything from workshops, it's, as you said, looking at data, looking at surveys, doing focus tests, but also playing the game with our community and talking to them while we play the game. And we've done a bunch of big changes, like the scavenging one. We're doing one on Exorigs now, where Exorigs is super cool now in the next test. We're doing so many changes based on the discussion with members of the community, and that's something I really enjoy. And I think this is just a start. This is the way we're going to continue to work on the game, so it absolutely will improve and be even more when we go live.
What are some of your takeaways? What did you guys work on based on what you heard from the players and saw?
What did we work on? Yeah, so from the combat team's perspective, Exos didn't really live up to its full potential. There wasn't really a progression there. It was a bit vague between what's a Q1 Exo or a grey Exo and a gold Exo. Weapons, we felt like we could do more with those as well. So we've gone back to the drawing board, both figuratively and very literally. We want to keep the core feel of everything, but then just juice it to the max. We built a long progression track for each Exo, and I think that wouldn't really work unless we said, well, the Exorigs that you now work really hard for, you unlock and craft, they're now permanent. You don't lose those when you die. They're like stuck to your body. But everything in your backpack, everything you're wearing, everything in your loadout, sorry, you're losing that.
So for weapons, we're doing a huge change where weapons previously had different tiers. And now we're actually removing these tiers and focusing more on weapon mods to give them more power. This is, of course, a big change that's coming for the next playtest, and it's a blast to play with because the gameplay is slightly more different, especially as you get to late game, where you can be a little bit more powerful now, and especially have more variation in your loadout choices.
Is there something that you remember seeing that maybe surprised or maybe even delighted you that the community felt that we then could implement? Maybe an idea that we got from the community, or maybe something that stood out that, yeah, this is a good idea. This is something we want to do in Exoborne.
Oh, I mean, in the first test I mentioned scavenging, and I think I've been open with this before, but I remember talking to, we had some people playing it, and they're like, scavenging is trash. As a dev, it's never something you want to hear about your game. It's like, no. It's like you break down a little bit. But then
And what part of scavenging didn't work, and how have we changed it?
So I'd say sort of everything from where we placed items to how you interacted with taking up those items to what the items did. So through the entire game, it's been changed.
Yeah.
So we have more items. I think we have 100 times more items. Actually, it's incredible. And the entire UI for how you interact with those items have been modified. We created more interiors where we could place the items to create more interesting locations. We have a much more different sort of containers that you can interact with, and they're also contextualized in the locations and what you can sell them for and how they're balanced. Like everything changed based on that feedback that we got. But this is more than a year ago. So it's been in the game for a while, but still being improved, of course.
We have a vision for the game. We know what type of game we want to make, but for almost everything we create, there are variants of that you can do. So one of my favorite things, because I ended up being on the winning team of that discussion thanks to the community, was that we were discussing internally what to do with the grappler. Should it be something some exos had? Should it be something everyone had? Should you always have it? Should you have to mod it? And there was no right or wrong in that discussion. Like, there were many viable points from all over our team on what we should do with the grappler. But when people outside of our team started playing it, they set the expectations that we needed to live up to, and it became clear that they thought it was more fun if they always had their grappler. So that settled that internal discussion for us. Now we knew this is how we're going to do the grappler. In my case, we needed, since I'm responsible for the team that works on that, we needed to look at the tutorial, we needed to look at onboarding after the recent test, because we saw people were missing some things, and it's up to us to kind of make sure it gets taught to new players in a good way. So that was perfect lessons to see, okay, what are people picking up on, what are they missing, and how can we make that experience better for new players. And we did that together with the community based on how they interacted with the game. So that is super essential feedback for us.
But I think, bar none, like the biggest piece of feedback we got from our latest test was players not really understanding parts of the game or finding aspects clunky. So we've put a big strike team on just the user experience of the game.
Yeah.
On the user interface, the menus, and really almost redoing that from the ground up in some areas. So in the next test, it's going to be a way more streamlined experience. Modding your exo is going to be way easier. Loadout management, even just getting into a game. It's all been optimized.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that I really like when working the way we do, because we see things that work really well. And I think all the movement we have, the fluid movement, the dynamic movement, works way better than I think we set out to believe in the beginning. Like years ago, when we had this dream of emergent systems and you could move freely, we thought it would be cool, but I think it ended up better than expected, actually. So that's cool. So we've done even more things, and that's why we looked at the exos to add more core abilities that had sort of dynamic movement tied to them. It's because it's also why we're looking at all these slide to shoot kind of things, just to get this fluid movement.
So we come up to a section where we need to talk a little bit about the, let's say, pitfall and challenges. So for example, if I'm not PvP first oriented, can I still play Exoborne if I like to participate in the story of the world and so on?
So we've got 3 different maps, which sort of have 3 different difficulties. And even if you mainly want to play PvE, you want to go through the narrative, get all the collectibles, if you stick with main art, it's going to be a more chill experience. And yeah, there will be a risk-reward loop, because even if a bodkin bandit kills you, you will lose what you have. However, the risk won't be as high, and likely neither will the reward.
I think it's important to say that we have the marketplace, or we have player trading, basically. So if I find something really good, I can sell it to Martin, or I can sell it to Gustav as well. So if Gustav wants to spend a lot of time doing a specific activity that he likes, he can still get the cash from it to be able to buy something good from me, for example. So we have a full economy between players that enables players that have a more low risk playstyle to do it for a longer time to compensate to get things.
And let's talk also about how different players when they get into Exoborne, because not just like we have persistent servers, we have a live service game where people start playing on different periods of time. How do we ensure that a player that comes late into Exoborne won't just simply face an insurmountable situation?
So the answer to that question is a little bit technical because it's about matchmaking, especially for new players that haven't played the game before, that are coming in, that first onboarding, they're not going to be able to play with the most advanced players unless, for example, they have a friend who's been playing for a long time, have really good gear, have good matchmaking rating. Of course, if you play with that friend, you will be temporarily put in the same sort of bracket where you matchmake with another group of player, but otherwise you're going to actually be on a different sort of matchmaking bracket, which means that you're not going to matchmake with those players.
We're also constantly looking at how do we make our onboarding and tutorialization just better, smoother, and teach the players more things without feeling like they're being bombarded with information.
Exactly. So those onboarding is a little bit not as handholdy anymore. They're more optional when that happens. And also, you're not going to end up killing those poor players over and over because they can't defend themselves.
I think one other key part of onboarding, of how we address it, is that to us, the bulk of the onboarding experience is there to teach you what you're expected to do. Not exactly how to do it, because that's up to you. And a lot of people know this in advance, and they just move through it because they played games like this before. And so it's not going to stop you or hinder you if you already know what you're doing. But if you don't know what you're doing, you're going to get that, I need to do that, I get it, okay, and then you move on. So that's an important distinction to make.
So a question that has been popping up in the community and that I'm wondering about personally, it's like, what answer do we have to the question, what keeps me as a seasoned veteran to keep playing? If I really want to dig into Exoborne, what motivates me to keep on digging into the game?
Excellent question. I mean, we're all, I'd say, hardcore gamers here, play a lot of games, and this is something that we sort of designed the entire game for, to be able to do that kind of updates to it. One of the most important things for variation is, of course, your own build and your ability to sort of create different types of play styles, refine that play style. And we do that with the X-Rig progression, like all the mods, augments you have on your X-Rig. So that's, of course, a system that's going to be expanded, but also different types of weapons, more weapons, different types of weapons, weapon mods, and extending all these kind of systems that create your playstyle build. But also when it comes to map, changing the maps, making new maps, different variations on the maps, playing around with extractions, playing around with anything, like all the different fun landmarks, and also some of the PvP rules. So all of that you will see in the live phase. And of course, we're also doing the traditional stuff like seasons and events and everything.
Yeah, and that gives you, like, since we constantly change out maps and stuff like that, that gives you a med on how you set up your rig with the different mods, with the weapons. You're always going to find a different optimal playstyle depending on what you're doing. And I also want to add to that, of course, that we have stuff like ranked mode, we have vanity that is important for a lot of people. We have the story that is constantly being added on in the updates. So depending on what you're looking for in a game, there's going to be different things that is going to keep you specifically coming back. So we have a broad range of content like that.
When we have a game like Exoborne, you have different types of players. Some people who rush through the content and get to the end game rather quickly. Those are, of course, the minority. It's a small portion of the players. The vast majority, they take a longer time to do it. What is the goal for a player who has reached the end game, so to speak?
I think once you have done everything that we have when it comes to progression, because then we have the assignments, we have mods for the exos, we have our equipment. Once you get there, it becomes quite like a social status kind of game, right? It's all about what is your rank, how much do you kill other players, can you be famous for being the highest on the leaderboard when it comes to ranked gameplay. Also, what outfits do you get, especially what kind of outfits that's connected to your rank, so you can have some bragging rights around who you are, the titles you have, what you have accomplished in the game. So once you have done everything in the game, that is what becomes important, I think.
And then hopefully the next patch isn't too far around the next corner, right?
Of course, I should mention that as well. There's always another update around the corner. There's another season, more content, more progression, more assignments, more weapons, etc.
And finally, of course, Petter, what is next for Exoborne?
The team is working really hard on the next playtest. We are addressing some issues we had in previous playtest, but also adding a lot of new fun things for you all to explore. So please keep an eye out for the playtest on the homepage, on social media, but also join our Discord to get the latest information. And let's play together in the next playtest.